What up? It's your boy, the Incredible Man, and yes, I am back at it again. And I know I am all kinds of late, but I didn't feel too great Tuesday, and I felt okay Wednesday, but I got tied up with some other things. So we're finally dealing with New Amsterdam season 3, episode 8, and I just gotta say, man, this season 3 is hitting all kinds of different, man. Let's talk about it. Honestly, man, I am amazed week in and week out while watching New Amsterdam season 3 because every week they bring something different to the table. Whether I'm feeling something emotionally, just learning something, or just being in awe of the sheer greatness of them handling all of this stuff for, black women in general, just in this episode. And sure, like, they handled a lot of black stuff so far, but like in this episode, let's be 100%, it was dedicated to black women and pregnant women nonetheless. And I gotta say, this was a fantastic episode. There were some other things going on as well, but it basically revolved around pregnant women and black women. And you get that knowledge as well. Like, even me, I don't know nothing about pregnant women, but I learned this episode that it's very hard for black pregnant women to actually have a normal childbirth. And then we learned that's because of the calculator and stuff like that this episode. So I didn't honestly know that. I mean, like, I knew that a lot of black women end up having a lot of high risk pregnancies and they end up having C-sections. I knew that. But they kind of broke it down and went in depth a little bit this episode, and I can't thank New Amsterdam enough for that, because we see the difficulties and the struggles that a lot of black women are dealing with. And when it came to the white women, this episode, that a lot of them end up having, normal childbirths. But we see this episode that 2 black women had normal childbirth. Well, it might have been 3. I think the first chick had a normal childbirth too. So 3 black women having a normal childbirth this episode, and the one white lady ended up having to have a C-section because her appendix burst while she was pregnant. So I like the little flip that they did this episode. And we also see Max defending justice for this particular black woman in case, the Evelyn lady, Evelyn Davis, I think, Davis, the lawyer lady that shut down a couple other OB places from other hospitals. And that's why New Amsterdam got that influx of pregnant women this episode. But we see Max is dealing with her, and to help her with her child, well, with her actual natural birth. And we see that, like, she's went through so much before. And her first child, she had to have the C-section and everything. So we see a lot of stuff going on, and we get that knowledge. But we also see that the very first lady had a natural childbirth, and something went wrong. But the complications from her childbirth, it wasn't from the childbirth. Like, we learned that she had a tumor. Yeah, she had a tumor on her, I want to say, was it her thyroid? I think it was. Anyway, and then she ended up, like, losing control of her left arm, and she couldn't hold her baby and stuff. Like, well, no, her right arm. So, like, there was a lot of stuff going on, man. Like, it was a lot of medical stuff in this time. Normally, I'm kind of okay and on trend with everything that's going on, but there was a lot of medical terms and a lot of medical stuff being thrown out this episode, dealing with all of this pregnancy stuff. And I just found myself like, oh, okay, dang, I didn't know that, man, because there was a lot of information this episode. It was an emotional episode as well, but there was a lot of information going on. Let's talk about the chick that Iggy dealt with first, because I feel like that particular case was something a little traumatic and gut-wrenching, man, but it overall had a nice ending. So Iggy meets this patient that actually Bloom met first and suspected that this chick was pregnant because they've been receiving an influx of pregnant women. And the lady was like, oh, no. Just because I'm big, you just gonna judge me out the gate. There was a lot of this episode too, let's be real. And the chick was like, well, I'm not pregnant, okay? I'm a virgin. And then Bloom was like, well, okay, well, my apologies. And she's like, well, what are you here for? Because she got beat up and abused in a shelter she was staying at. But come to find out, she is pregnant. And then we see that she's refuting it the entire time. And then the OB was like, well, she's going to get a court order to take the baby out of her and everything. But Iggy comes in to assess her because it's a mental problem. So long story short, we see that the chick ended up being raped, man, and assaulted by her dad's stepbrother because of the whole pandemic and everything. She ended up living with him, and when he lost his job, he decided to turned his sights on her, feeling like he was owed something. And she was raped, man. And that's so sad because she kind of like, it was a trauma, and she kind of just faded away in her mind and went to a different place while that was constantly happening to her, because it happened on multiple occasions. And the results is that of a child. Now, we knew that she probably wouldn't want to keep it because she was raped, so that's understandable. And she wasn't even acknowledging the fact that she was pregnant. But Iggy kind of tricked her a little bit, and that's not something that Iggy normally does, but we see him doing that a lot more lately because of the circumstances of each situation calls for someone needing to be tricked. And I'm referring to the situation where the mom had the disease with her eyes and she couldn't remember her son's face, so Iggy had to trick her as well. So he's happening to do it a lot, but that's not something that he likes doing. But it ended up working out in the long run, and Iggy got a chance to actually talk to her and find all this stuff out. And at the end of the episode, we see that the baby that she had was even given to a nice family that probably wanted kids, and she was okay with that. So I don't want to say all's well that ends well, but we see that Iggy helped her through her situation a little bit and kind of get control of her life back, and the baby had a happy ending as well. And I really loved that, man. Also, this episode, we see like Max dealing with the situation of the lawyer lady, and that was a rough situation, man. Max kind of poured his heart out a little bit, talked about his wife and Luna, and the lady just didn't want to hear it, man, because she wanted to have a natural birth instead of being having a C-section again. And we see that Max decides to throw out the system that, separates everything, because the system is racist, not like the actual doctors or anything. The system with this calculator was racist. So Max decided to throw out the system and treat her like she was a white patient, which was nice. And we see that this lady actually ended up having a normal birth, and she didn't have to have the C-section. And I feel like that was such a nice moment for New Amsterdam to showcase that. And like I said, with the chick that was raped, she had a natural birth as well. And it's nice to see the screen flipped a little bit between the black and white patients, especially in this whole episode where they kind of just broke all that down. We also see that, man, Sharp is dealing with another patient, like the very first lady of the episode, that she has the tumor, and she wants to bond with her baby, and she just hasn't had that opportunity, but she needs to go take this cancer treatment immediately before there's not a chance for her to be with her daughter. And I don't know how it feels, because I'm not a woman or a father or anything, so I don't know how that connection feels to children, but she wanted to be connected to her daughter because she was born and she just had her and everything. But I feel like it's sad that she's not latching on to the breastfeeding. Now, she latched on at the very ending of the episode, but before that, she kept denying to go seek the radiation and everything. And I feel like it's sad that, she's not latching on, but go get this treatment and then you can have that connection and that bond with your daughter. It'll never be like the breastfeeding connection, but you will be alive to see her grow up and be around her. So you take that chance. Now, I mean, I don't know how that whole connection works, but even if she's not, you'll still be alive to see her and form a connection. It won't be that kind of bond, but you'll be alive. So you go take that radiation if you need to. But it all worked out in the end because the baby ended up latching to her while she was on her way to go get treatment. So it helped in the long run. But I'm just saying, hey, you need to take them first steps first. But we also see that Sharp is dealing with something this episode with her niece, because she can't really seem to click with her niece. And I feel like that whole situation is because they don't really know each other. Like, she was never in her life anyway, and that's not a bad thing, because she, it is what it is. But now that you're in each other's lives, it's going to take a while for you guys to really understand each other and get to know each other, because they don't know each other. And Sharp is just hoping for that instant moment, aka mom gratification, and that's not going to be the case in this situation. Bloom, let's talk about Bloom, man. Oh my gosh, Bloom this episode, she was on a rampage with clearing out the ED, because they were, like I said, receiving an influx of patients, and she just like, well, go treat this doctor, go treat him in another room. And that room that he just happened to find happened to be the room with the chick in it, and they kicked her out. And then I love the fact that she covered for Bloom. It was like, I don't know Dr. Bloom. I found this room myself, and I just started staying here. And Bloom came in and just ruined the entire lie. But it was okay because everything worked out in the end. And I knew it was going to come to this. Bloom asked the chick to move in with her to be her roommate. Now, I'm really loving their situation and their dynamic, and I don't want to see them in a relationship. I like them better as friends because they play off each other and it's a good chemistry between them. I mean, if this is the route that they're having to go, it's okay, but I'd rather them stay friends. I like them being friends. And I was hoping for Bloom and Reynolds to get back together, but then in comes Dr. Malvo. Now, we meet Dr. Malvo this episode, and she's an OB, and she heads up the OB department. And we see that her and Reynolds has this whole little connection going on, but we find out that either she's married, but she can't wear a ring, but she had it tied to her scrubs, but we find out she's either married or that her husband passed away or something. I'm assuming she's married. She just can't wear a ring, because she's an OB and all this stuff. So she tied it to her scrubs. So I'm assuming she's married. Now, something could happen between her and her husband that could open the door for Reynolds, but I'm like you guys. I want Reynolds and Bloom together. And the highlight of this episode that I mentioned, that I forgot to mention, is that when the lawyer lady talked to Max, was like, "Have you ever loved a black woman?" And I was like, "Oh yeah. Oh, he loved Helen, but they just can't get together right now." But like I said, with Reynolds and Dr. Malvo, we see that both of them are operating on the lady that came in with problems and her complications of her pregnancy, but she felt fine and everything, and we learned that her appendix burst, and Reynolds cut out the appendix, and we see that him and Dr. Malvo have this whole connection going on, and we see them in the OR, and next thing you know, something happens and they have to perform a C-section, and they get the baby out, and the most wonderful thing happened. I've seen a lot of doctor shows, man. Chicago Med, The Resident. I watch a lot of stuff, but that moment where they took the baby out and Reynolds had to press the two fingers to keep the baby alive, that moment was just beautiful. I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I was like, oh wow. I was entranced in that whole moment. But like I said, we see that they have that nice little connection, but we learned that she's also married. So I don't know how they want to play that, but I'm still hoping that Reynolds and Bloom can get together. I like their friendship, but I want them back together as a relationship since they both matured a little bit more now. I think that's everything. I want to say that's everything because we see Max, stepping up doing this thing as always. Yeah, man, I think that's everything that I wanted to discuss anyway about the episode. But I just gotta say, I loved it, man. I just loved this episode. It was nice and it was different and it was very informative about all of the stuff that black women struggle with while going to the hospital and having babies and stuff. And I gotta thank New Amsterdam for showing us that, man. This your boy Dick Incredible. Don't forget to smash the like button till you can't smash it anymore. Comment down below and I'll be sure to respond to each and every one of them and subscribe, but only if you really want to, man. Peace out. I cannot complain because today, I'm doing my